independent, unbiased journalism of integrity.
Thank you for your endorsement of serious journalism.
IPL 13, cricket's biggest tournament, the way you have never seen before. Bio bubbles, social distancing and COVID protocols. As we count down to the $1 billion league, we get you all the stories and the biggest interviews.
The moment we waited for is finally here.
The experience this time is going to be different.
In our IPL special segment, only on Ndtv 24/7.
What happens if I get coronavirus? What should I do to protect my family? How long is the pandemic going to last? On social media, you will get hundreds of answers to these questions, but many of them will be false and risky. Hello and welcome to a special show, Coronavirus Facts versus Myths. We will talk to experts in India and around the world to help us all debunk the dangerous rumors and lies that are being spread.
Very impressed the way you anchors prepare your programs and the speakers you select. Your channel is doing a lot of research.
Weekdays at 1:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. only on Ndtv 24/7.
Legacy is often seen as a burden of expectations. It comes with its own set of challenges. The challenge to take it forward, challenge to reimagine, challenge to be in the present, and also challenge to think about the future.
What accountability are you talking about?
As long as the core values and principles remain uncompromised. Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 21 years old, but it is young at 21. So let us begin the big fight.
The top newsmakers, the top debates, the honest truth behind every story. Where do you see the local situation in South Pangong going?
Our boys are well prepared. Chinese need to know that our boys are capable of doing the same thing that their boys are doing.
I keep emphasizing this, saying that unless we all get involved, don't expect the government to just sort of mandate something.
The most terrible time global aviation has ever seen. At this time, we can get the structural change of having aviation turbine fuel included in the GST. It will help clean up the system tremendously.
Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. on Ndtv 24/7.
They say the zero is nothing unless it connects the dots and the real story emerges. Unless it captures the truth. They say the camera never lies. Unless it is the essence of India, of diversity and tolerance. Unless it reveals the wealth of nations.
Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight as India strongly backs France's fight against terror. The French president says the only community in France is one, a national community. Meanwhile, Twitter deletes ex-Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad's post, but in parts of India, in Bhopal and Mumbai, there are protests against the French president and his remarks on Islamic terror. Kerala, Delhi and Bengal now have the top corona case growth rates in India. But as we can see in Delhi, huge crowds at markets despite spike. Huge crowds at the funeral of killed BJP workers in Kashmir. The PM condoles the killing of the 3 workers. The police say the Pakistan-backed terror group Lashkar is behind these killings. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar calls Tejasvi Yadav's job promises bogus, but in Tejasvi's exclusive to Ndtv, he says Nitish's words for me are his blessing to me. Meanwhile, at the huge crowds at Tejasvi's rally, they only talk of one issue: we want jobs.
A quota for medical admission colleges for Tamil Nadu students from government schools. The governor clears a 7.5% quota for NEET students who've qualified from Tamil Nadu government schools. Trenches being built at the Assam-Mizoram state border by Mizoram police as Assam-Mizoram tension escalates again, as now Mizoram trucks aren't being allowed into Assam. And it's finally here, BTS on Ndtv coming up.
When will they see you perform in India? Give them some idea. When will they see you perform live in front of their eyes? All questions answered by BTS. Don't miss our special show, BTS on Ndtv.
Our lead story tonight, more and more world leaders have come out in support of France and against the brutal terror knife attack yesterday at a French church where 3 people were killed. Twitter, meanwhile, also deleted the post by the ex-Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, where he had said that Muslims were right to be angry and should kill millions of French people for past massacres. India's Prime Minister also came out strongly yesterday amongst the first world leaders to condemn the attack and say India strongly stood in solidarity with France.
Amid rising tensions between the French president and Islamic nations, former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad's inflammatory remarks on Twitter against the French sparked widespread outrage, prompting Twitter to delete his post. A 60-year-old woman died inside the church and the body of a man, a 55-year-old church employee, was also found nearby, his throat also slit. Another woman, a 44-year-old Brazilian, who had fled the church to a nearby restaurant, died shortly afterwards from multiple knife wounds. "Tell my children I love them," she managed to say before her death. Followed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's statement that India stands with France in the fight against terrorism, US President Donald Trump, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, and the UN Secretary General have also condemned the brutal attack. Police has confirmed that the suspect was a 21-year-old Tunisian national who had arrived in France earlier this month.
En France, il n'y a qu'une communauté. C'est la communauté nationale. Et je veux dire à tous nos concitoyens, quelle que soit leur religion, qu'ils croient d'ailleurs ou qu'ils ne croient pas, que nous devons dans ces moments nous unir et ne rien céder à l'esprit de division.
The French president's robust defense of secularism at Samuel Paty's memorial 10 days ago seems to have been hard to digest by some. All it took was a speech, then there were the threats, then there were the deaths. The attack has prompted the French government to raise its security alert status hours before a nationwide coronavirus lockdown that will include a curfew. This is Parmeshwar Bawa for NDTV.
And in India as well, some groups came out to protest against the French president. There were protests reported from Bhopal, the Aligarh Muslim University, also in parts of Mumbai. Posters of the French president were actually placed on the streets for people to drive over. The police then removed that. These protests coming when India has strongly supported France and stood in support against the terror attack there.
Protests against French President Emmanuel Macron in Mumbai's Shivdi area. Earlier, 3 people were killed when a knife-wielding man attacked a church. The man beheaded a woman and killed 2 other people while shouting Allahu Akbar. The earlier protests in Mumbai saw pictures of Emmanuel Macron pasted on the road in Muhammad Ali Road area. The police removed the posters from the street. In Bhopal, the police booked around 200 people, including Congress MLA Arif Masood, as thousands of Muslims protested against the French president. There were protests in Aligarh and Ludhiana too. The protests come after Prime Minister Modi tweeted in support of France as 3 lives were lost in what has been described as a terror attack.
आज फ्रांस में इस्लामिक फैनेटिज्म टेररिज्म के खिलाफ फ्रांस का अध्यक्ष आवाज उठाता है तो यहाँ पर आपकी सरकार जो फैनेटिक इस्लामिक टेररिस्ट सपोर्टिंग करने वाले लोगों के पीछे खड़ी है.
The protests seem to have been sparked off following objection from several Islamic states against the stance adopted by French President Emmanuel Macron after the knife attack in his country. But Prime Minister Modi has made the Indian position very clear, that India stands by France as it tackles the terror attack. In Mumbai, with camera person Praveen Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, Ndtv.
Well, moving to other big headline, the latest numbers for India. Well, our new cases in the last 24 hours of 48,648. So, in fact, our new cases have increased by 14% in a day. Now, this may be because of festival season, people relaxing, also the increased air pollution. And we are now nearing the 81 lakh mark, as in we have surpassed the 80 lakh mark and we are nearing the 81 lakh mark. And which are the states which actually, even though India has shown an overall decline, where is it where states are actually going up? So the fastest growth rate currently in India based on 3-day average is Kerala at 1.8%, the fastest growth rate of cases, followed closely by Delhi at 1.5%, then West Bengal 1.1%. Which are the current success stories? Now, Punjab has a low growth rate only of 0.3%, Bihar 0.3%, Assam 0.2%. That's based on the current rate of testing. And of course, some states have more than the other, but a big worry there at the rise in Kerala and Delhi and West Bengal's cases. And Delhi there, number 2 in India in growth rate. But just look at what's the current situation in Delhi's markets. Now, huge crowds there at markets like Sarojini Nagar and Karol Bagh. Huge crowds of people, some of them wearing masks, but there's absolutely no concept of social distancing. So just wearing a mask literally isn't enough. Why are people out there shopping? It's the craziest thing to do at a time when cases are spiking right now. If you have to go out, please maintain a social distance, because as Delhi's doctors are warning, with the double whammy in Delhi of air pollution and this crowding at markets, ICUs are already showing double the number of usual cases.
After reporting its highest ever cases, over 5,700, Delhi's third wave is now prominent. However, the government says it can't be called that yet, and the numbers are rising because of tighter contact tracing and testing. The Delhi government has, however, appealed for caution, given the double hit of COVID-19 and pollution.
जो कॉन्टैक्ट ट्रेसिंग है इसको बहुत एग्रेसिवली किया जा रहा है. एक पॉजिटिव आता है तो उसके सारे कॉन्टैक्ट्स को ट्रेस करके उनको टेस्ट किया जा रहा है. कई बार तो ऐसा पूरा परिवार निकल आता है, तो बंचिंग में लोग आ रहे हैं. जब तक वैक्सीन नहीं आती है तब तक मास्क को ही वैक्सीन मान लीजिए. मास्क लगाएंगे तो आपको पोल्यूशन से भी राहत मिलेगी और कोरोना से भी मिलेगी.
Doctors at LNJP Hospital, Delhi's biggest COVID-dedicated hospital, say they are now seeing almost twice the number of ICU patients because of the air pollution. As of Friday morning, out of its 200 ICU beds with ventilators, only 14 were vacant.
हमारे यहाँ पहले 40 से 50 पेशेंट्स पर डे आते थे, अभी 80 से 90 पेशेंट्स पर डे आ रहे हैं पिछले 3-4 दिन से. प्रदूषण की वजह से ऑक्सीजन कम होता है एयर में, और कोविड की वजह से भी. तो दोनों फैक्टर यदि मिल जाते हैं तो पेशेंट्स को जो सांस लेने में जो तकलीफ है वो बढ़ जाती है.
Delhi has also increased the number of RT-PCR tests, the gold standard, from 18% in mid-September to 29% now.
A report by the National Center for Disease Control this month had said that Delhi may see up to 15,000 daily COVID cases in winter, and nearly 3,000 people would need to be hospitalized every day. In New Delhi with camera person Sushil Rathi, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NTTV.
Moving now to news of another terror attack which killed 3 BJP workers in the Kashmir Valley. The Prime Minister condoled the deaths of, he said, these 3 BJP young workers, and today hundreds turned out at the funerals of these 3 young men.
Hundreds joined funeral prayers of BJP leader Fida Hussain. The Youth Wing General Secretary for Kulgam district was killed with his 2 party colleagues Umar Hajam and Harun Rashid by terrorists who attacked their car on Thursday evening. The Imam who led the prayers asked how long would Kashmiris suffer such death and destruction. In the last 4 months, 8 BJP party members have been killed in Kashmir. In July, 3 had been killed in a single attack. The police say it was a well-planned attack and that they have identified the attackers and launched a search.
इसमें एलईटी का नाम आ रहा है और इसमें एक लोकल मिलिटेंट डोरू का है, निसार खांडे है, एक खुरबनी का अब्बास शेख है. बहुत संभावना है, चांस है कि प्री प्लान अटैक होगा.
As the bodies reached home this morning, a large crowd gathered to offer condolences.
ये दिमाग में नहीं था गांव में किसी को भी इसके साथ ये हादसा हो सकता है, क्या कहेंगे। तो कश्मीर में तो ये घटनाएं होती रहती है, बस यही बंद होना चाहिए यहाँ पर। इस गांव में इसने किसी को भी तकलीफ अभी तक नहीं दी होगी किसी को।
हमारे 3 जांबाज हमारे नौजवानों को शहीद कर दिया गया, इसकी हमें तकलीफ है। जिन लोगों ने भी ये जुल्म किया है वो बच नहीं सकते। कानून तो अपना काम करेगा, लेकिन ऊपर वाला भी, खुदा भी उनको कभी माफ नहीं करेगा।
The police say they have provided security to all BJP workers and accommodation in protected and safe places.
For the last 3 decades, mainstream political workers and leaders have always been the target of militants in Kashmir. But over the last 1 year, as the political activities of mainstream regional parties have come to a halt, it is the BJP workers in the valley who have become target number 1 of militants. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi for Ndtv.
Absolutely shocking terror attack there, targeting people, young workers there for their political beliefs. Moving now to other stories, the latest on the Bihar campaign trail. Well, today, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar broke his silence on jobs because, of course, this has been the major election plank of his main rival, young Tejasvi Yadav. The BJP has also promised jobs. So here's what Nitish Kumar had to say.
कितना को हम नौकरी लगाएंगे तो क्या करेंगे, सब तो बोगस बात है। वो सब तो यूं ही बोलने की आदत है, कुछ से कुछ बोलना है, लोगों को गुमराह करना, भ्रमित करना। हम लोगों ने कितने लोगों को नौकरी दी, कितने लोगों को सेवा का अवसर दिया, 6 लाख से भी ज्यादा लोगों को नौकरी। और इन लोगों ने क्या दिया था भाई 15 साल में? इन्होंने कितने लोगों को नौकरी का अवसर दिया? 95,000 लोगों को मौका दिया।
Well, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar facing his main challenge from Tejasvi Yadav, whose 16 rallies a day and rallies across the state has actually rewritten current political equations. He was written off in the months before the election, but suddenly seems to be back in the race. NDTV's Uma Shankar Singh caught up with him. When he asked him about Nitish Kumar saying that this was bogus, Tejasvi Yadav said, well, this is Nitish's words of blessing for him, that and much more.
तेजस्वी जी, जहाँ जहाँ आप जाते हैं भीड़ आती है। आपने एक रोजगार का मुद्दा दिया, लेकिन नीतीश कुमार जी कहते हैं कि ये सब बोगस बात है।
देखिए, जो नीतीश कुमार जी पूरी तरीके से थक चुके हैं, बिहार उनसे संभल नहीं रहा। आप बताइए, बिहार में मुद्दे हैं क्या है? कमाई, दवाई, पढ़ाई और सिंचाई। नीतीश कुमार जी ने सब चौपट कर रखा है, कोई इस विषय में कोई ध्यान नहीं दे रहे हैं। तो हमने भरोसा दिया है, खाली पद है, उसको आप नहीं बढ़िएगा, यानी आप भरोगे नहीं तब तक शिक्षा सुधरेगा कैसे? स्कूल में जब टीचर नहीं होंगे, अलग अलग विषयों के टीचर नहीं होंगे,
तो आपका कहना है कि जो वादा कर रहे हैं अगर सत्ता में आए तो जरूर पूरा करेंगे।
पहले कलम से 10 लाख सरकारी नौकरी पहले मंत्रिमंडल की बैठक में, ये एकदम प्रैक्टिकली होने वाला है। क्योंकि हमने कहने के लिए 50 लाख 1 करोड़ कह सकते थे, लेकिन हमारे कई जो अर्थशास्त्र के बड़े विद्वान लोग हैं, इकोनॉमिस्ट है, उन सबसे बातचीत करके ही हम लोगों ने ये फैसला लिया है। 4.5 लाख नौकरियां खाली पड़ी है, रिक्त पदे हैं, और 5.5 लाख नेशनल एवरेज के मुकाबले आने के लिए।
लेकिन कुछ लोग ये सवाल कर रहे हैं कि मोदी जी भी जब 2014 में सत्ता में आए थे, 2 करोड़ रोजगार की बात कह के आए थे, सत्ता में आने के बाद भूल गए, तो कहीं आपके साथ भी तो ऐसा नहीं होगा?
देखिए, हम हवाई भाषणबाजी नहीं करना चाहते हैं, इसलिए क्योंकि हमको लंबी राजनीति करनी है। और जो चीज़ प्रैक्टिस, जब पैसा है, खाली पदों को भरना है, नेशनल एवरेज के मुकाबले लाना है, तो ऐसा जब आदमी चांद पे चला जाएगा तो बिहार में कारखाने नहीं लग सकते, नौकरियां नहीं भरी जा सकती हैं। ये तो बेवकूफ़ वाली बातें हैं कि आप जो है खाली पद को आप छोड़ रखा है इतने सालों से।
उनकी भाषा भी कुछ अजीब सी हो गई नीतीश कुमार।
वो आशीर्वाद है मेरे लिए।
Tejasvi Yadav speaking to Uma Shankar Singh. And before the Bihar elections, everybody said that SSR will be an issue, caste will be an issue, which it still is, of course, a very prominent factor in these elections. But so many issues were discussed. But at Tejasvi Yadav's rally, we spoke to the people who've come there. And for all the people, there was just one issue that they wanted him to deliver on, and they said that's the issue of jobs and employment. Take a look.
आपका नाम क्या है और आप क्यों आए हैं इस सभा में?
जी, मेरा नाम मोहम्मद तौसीफ रजा है। हम यहाँ पे आए हैं जो आरजेडी के अभी जो तेजस्वी यादव यहाँ आएंगे, बस उसी से कुछ उम्मीद करने आए हैं।
क्या उम्मीद है आपकी?
बहुत सारा उम्मीद है। वो जो कहे हैं कि पहली बार हमारी कलम से 10 लाख नौकरी लिखे जाएंगे, बस वही उम्मीद है, बस वही उम्मीद है। बस
आप किस उम्मीद में आए?
हम भी उसी उम्मीद में आए जो तेजस्वी यादव ने पहले कैबिनेट मंत्री बनने से पहले उसने बोला था कि हम 10 लाख रोजगारों को रोजगार देंगे। उसी मकसद से हम लोग आए हैं, और उससे पहले बहुत जितने भी स्टूडेंट है बिहार के अंदर सब बेरोजगार बैठे हैं। और लॉकडाउन के मामले में तो सभी लोग, पूरे बिहार को लोग जानते हैं, लॉकडाउन में नीतीश कुमार ने पूरे पब्लिक को जो ना पाँव में छाल तक आ गया चलते चलते। तो एक जरा सा भी नीतीश कुमार ने अभी तक बाहर तक नहीं निकले लॉकडाउन।
सर, हमें उन पर पूरे उम्मीद है कि वो इस बार बिहार में बहुत ही अच्छा काम करेगी और रोजगार देगी, ठीक है, सब युवाओं को। और ये भी उम्मीद है कि बिहार में और विकास होगी, हॉस्पिटल में जो अच्छी व्यवस्था होगी, और गरीब लोग जो इधर से उधर भटक जाते हैं बीमारी के कारण, उसका इलाज नहीं हो पाता, उन पे तेजस्वी सरकार इस बार बढ़िया से काम करेगी।
So the hopes and expectations of voters. Let's see what finally happens. A quick look at other news. Well, markets fell for the third day in a row. The Sensex down by over 135 points. The Nifty settling down by just over 28 points. The gains were mainly wiped out because of the weakness in auto, banking and FMCG shares, and uncertainty over the US elections next week and rising COVID cases globally have kept investors on the sideline. Well, the Tamil Nadu governor today gave his consent to an unanimously passed bill which gives 7.5% seats in the state's medical colleges for government school students who have qualified in the National Medical Entrance Test, NEET. The quota secures 300 seats across medical colleges in the state for government school students from this academic year who have been at a disadvantage because of the lack of resources to pay for private tuitions and to qualify for entrance into the state's medical colleges. Moving now to our special report, the fact that trenches are actually being built along the Assam-Mizoram state border as the standoff resurfaces. The reasons are complex, but what's happening now means that Mizoram trucks are stuck on the border as Assam is refusing to let them in.
Viral photos and videos of Mizoram security forces digging trenches and building bunkers at the Assam border, kicking off fresh tensions. Hundreds of Mizoram-bound trucks stranded since 28th of October at Lailapur in Assam. Locals want Mizoram forces to be pushed back to Vairangte at least. Mizoram has refused.
Party le NGO zong te pona antong ania he lasoi fellow ani.
Since the deadlock began mid-October, the border has seen shops and homes set on fire and people from both states injured in clashes. Last week's tripartite talks with the centre did see a breakthrough. But a bomb blast in a school on the Assam side of the border on 22nd October undid that.
Investigation of Tetia Leke Dikini Ulaise or Jitu Kotha Ami SP Kolasibo Logotu Patisu. The Hoyto Dikini Manu he Duskritikari explosion koise tiono ke Mizoram hobo pare.
Mizoram has worked out an alternate route to bring in essential supplies through Manipur, official sources say. But Assam has once again sounded New Delhi on the border build-up. The Mizoram government clearly sees this as a border dispute. Assam has been treating this more like a law and order problem. The fresh blockade and the security build-up in the border areas has only made things worse. And clearly, last week's piecemeal solution by centre has not worked. Therefore, for New Delhi, the challenge is not only to defuse the situation, but also find out a long-lasting solution. In Guwahati, Ratndeep Chaudhary for Ndtv.
Well, the big international story, of course, is 4 days to go for the U.S. presidential election. What are the latest polls saying? Well, they still show the Democrat candidate Joe Biden at 54% and Donald Trump at 42%. But more and more analysts are talking of what's being termed the shy Trump voter, that people who won't necessarily come out and say they're voting for President Trump, but, well, on voting day actually do. However, of course, the fact is that there's been a huge turnout already via postal ballots and in person during the COVID pandemic. And right now, while President Trump is still out there campaigning, the Democrat camp is busy releasing campaign videos. Take a look. A result the world will be watching, but let's just move to some other better news. And this 4-year-old little girl who has this amazing voice. Listen to a rendition of A.R. Rahman's Vande Mataram. Well, moving from that 4-year-old, here's what the entire BTS army has been waiting for. Coming up right after this break, your wait is over.
What does BTS want to convey to the world through their music? How do you motivate yourself for an online concert, for a virtual concert? The people are not there where you are. They are not in the same vicinity. How do you motivate yourself? Now the most important question for the BTS armies in India: when will they see you perform in India? Give them some idea. When will they see you perform live in front of their eyes? All questions answered by BTS. Don't miss our special show, BTS on Ndtv, across Ndtv network.
BTS on Ndtv.
Brought to you by
Why did your party do this? Let me finish!
Ridiculous! You don't deserve to be in politics. This is paranoia. Don't you have any self-respect?
You are judge, jury and executioner.
We live in a time when post-truth has replaced truth, when alternate facts have replaced facts, when fake news has replaced real news. On Reality Check, we debunk propaganda. We separate fact from fiction. We expose falsehoods. We hold power to account. Watch Reality Check Monday to Thursday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Srinivasan Jain, on Ndtv 24/7.
Ndtv wins the Trust vote once again.
This is now.
One person who the Ndtv group has been awarded India's most trusted news broadcaster. Independent, unbiased journalism of integrity.
Thank you for your endorsement of serious journalism.
IPL 13, cricket's biggest tournament, the way you have never seen before. Bio bubbles, social distancing and COVID protocols. As we count down to the $1 billion league, we get you all the stories and the biggest interviews.
The moment we waited for is finally here.
The experience this time is going to be different.
In our IPL special segment, only on NDTV 24/7.
What happens if I get coronavirus? What should I do to protect my family? How long is the pandemic going to last? On social media, you will get hundreds of answers to these questions, but many of them will be false and risky.
Hello and welcome to a special show, Coronavirus Facts versus Myths. We will talk to experts in India and around the world to help us all debunk the dangerous rumors and lies that are being spread.
Very impressed the way you anchors prepare your programs and the speakers you select. Your channel is doing a lot of research.
Weekdays at 1:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
Legacy is often seen as a burden of expectations. It comes with its own set of challenges. The challenge to take it forward, challenge to reimagine, challenge to be in the present, and also challenge to think about the future.
What accountability are you talking about?
As long as the core values and principles remain uncompromised. Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 21 years old, but it is young at 21. So let us begin the big fight.
The top newsmakers, the top debates, the honest truth behind every story. Where do you see the local situation in South Pangong going?
Our boys are well prepared. Chinese need to know that our boys are capable of doing the same thing that their boys are doing.
I keep emphasizing this, saying that unless we all get involved, don't expect the government to just sort of mandate something.
The most terrible time global aviation has ever seen. At this time, we can get the structural change of having aviation turbine fuel included in the GST. It will help clean up the system tremendously.
Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
They say the zero is nothing unless it connects the dots and the real story emerges. Unless it captures the...
This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and welcome to NDTV. I'm Rohit Khilnani. This is a very special show because we have very special guests for the first time on Indian television, BTS. This show is called BTS on NDTV. Good to see all of you. Annyeonghaseyo. Namaste. So good to see all of you on this virtual interview. I wish I was there in person to talk to all of you. You guys have a lot of fans in India. They are called BTS India Armies. I'm sure they are watching this interview. So for all those fans in India who are watching this interview, what do you want to tell them?
인도 팬분들이 저에게 많은 관심과 사랑을 주는 걸 굉장히 저희도 잘 알고 있고요. 저희의 음악을 들어주시고 또 저희의 얘기에 이렇게 공감을 해주셔서 너무 감사드린다고 얘기하고 싶고, 또 뭐랄까 언어와 이 국경을 초월해 음악을 매개로 서로의 진심이 통했다고 생각합니다. 그래서 저희가 이렇게 지금 직접 볼 수는 없지만 이렇게 여러분들께 너무 감사드린다고 인사를 하고 싶습니다.
Great, your fans in India made your song Dynamite #1. It was on a music streaming app on #1 position for 50 days. They are the ones who make it possible. What do you want to tell them? What does BTS want to convey to the world through their music?
First of all, thank you for the love and support. And even though we haven't been there, but you know, it's a crazy days these days. So I think we just can't say just one thing. If the time passes by and this crazy things, when these crazy things all finish, then we want to be there and see all the armies in India, and you know, have this energy together, dance together, sing together. Yeah. So we want to really say namaste when it's like really be there and, you know, just give our voices in person.
Great. You guys have a special connection with your fans through your music, especially at a time like this during a pandemic and a lockdown. Do you think music helps and it's been a healer? Do you agree with me? And do you think music heals the toughest times?
지금 워낙 이 전 세계적으로 이 팬데믹이 이렇게 지속이 되고 있는 상황에서 이제 음악은 사실 이제 국경과 뭐 인종과 나이를 상관없이 초월을 한다고 생각을 하는데, 모두가 힘든 지금 상황에서 이제 저희 음악을 듣고 힘을 내주신다는 말을 들음으로써 저희들도 굉장히 힘이 나고요. 다 같이 이제 힘내서 이겨내는 방법밖에 없지 않을까, 그런 생각이 좀 듭니다.
Right, and during this pandemic, you all have done concerts, you all have contributed to so many charities through your concerts. That's wonderful. I watched your concert online. I really enjoyed it. What I want to ask you is, how do you motivate yourself for an online concert, for a virtual concert, where the people are not there where you are, they are not in the same vicinity? How do you motivate yourself?
저희는 당연히 아미분들이 저희의 원동력이라고 생각을 하고, 이제 아미분들이 계시기 때문에 저희가 지금 이 자리에 있을 수 있는 거고, 이번 공연에서는 아무래도 아미분들의 얼굴을 화면으로 통해 이제 보고 목소리도 들을 수 있었는데요. 너무 오랜만에 이제 봐서 감격스럽기도 하고, 이렇게 많은 아미분들이 우리와 함께 무대를 즐겨주시는 거구나 싶어 감사한 마음이 정말 많이 컸습니다. 그리고 이제 정말 엄청 좋은 첨단 기술을 통해 이제 그나마 아미분들과 거리가 더 좁혀지는 것 같아서 온라인 콘서트도 조금 더 편하게 할 수 있었던 것 같아요.
Great, guys, you all have been on the cover of Time magazine, you all have spoken at the UN, you all have been on the biggest talk shows in the world. You all have had 4 #1 albums on Billboard after the Beatles. That's actually never happened before. How do you manage to stay grounded? Because fans are screaming wherever you guys go.
일단 저희가 지금까지 이뤄냈던 많은 것들은 정말로 대단한 일이라고 생각을 하고, 그리고 지금까지 이렇게 올라올 수 있었던 이유는 진짜 저희의 노력도 있고 시기도 있고 하지만 정말로 팬들의 응원과 사랑 덕분에 그렇게 올라올 수 있었던 것 같아요. 그래서 그게 아마 저희가 가장 중요하게 생각하는 중심이 아닐까 싶습니다.
Fantastic. Guys, you've been dropping some hints about your next album, B. Do you want to tell the audience that's watching, what is the process of making music for this band? Who in this band does what exactly?
It depends on tracks by tracks and case by case. like for this album, I can't say like many things, but every members did their part, even like lyrics, tracks, ideas, or even like fashion covers, like anything.
이번에는 이번 앨범 작업할 때는 멤버들이 굉장히 많은 의견을 내주었던 앨범이고 만들면서 그리고 뭐 얘기를 하면서 뭐 주제나 뭐 여러 가지 감정들을 이제 얘기하다 보니까 고스란히 그 감정들을 다 담을 수 있었던 것 같고 아마 지금까지 가장 저희가 뭔가 손길을 많이 준 그런 앨범이 아닌가 생각이 듭니다.
Right, and are there defined roles? Who does what exactly?
이번 앨범에서는 뭐 딱히 뭐 누가 이렇게 하고 저렇게 하고 하기보다는 그냥 다 같이 할 수 있는 것들에 대해서 최선을 다했던 것 같아요.
뭐 항상 그치. 역할이 정해져 있다기보다는 그냥 그때마다 이제 할 수 있는 것들을 좀 구분지으면서 하는 편이긴 해가지고 뭐 이번엔 다 같이 좀 참여를 많이 해가지고 어떤 역할을 했다 뭐 이러기에는 좀 너무 다 같이 많이 해가지고요.
Right, maybe that's the secret of your success. I also want to ask you, you have filled stadiums in different countries where people don't understand the language in which you make your music. Do you ever wonder how do you connect so well? Because though language is a barrier, music has no language.
음악은 그냥 뭐 언어의 장벽이란 게 딱히 없는 것 같아요. 저희도 알아듣지는 못하지만 정말 여러 나라의 음악을 듣고 뭐 느끼는 것도 있고 정말 그냥 사람들을 이어줄 수 있는 수단이라고 생각하는데 뭐 진짜 언어를 모름에도 저희의 음악을 듣고 즐겨주시는 그냥 팬들께 너무 감사하다고 또 얘기를 하고 싶어요.
And now the most important question for the BTS ARMYs in India. When will they see you perform? Give them some idea. When will they see you perform live in front of their eyes?
사실 뭐 이 상황만 빨리 종식이 되면은 언제든지 너무나도 보러 가고 싶고 그리고 저희도 빨리 인도 팬 여러분들에게 저희의 그런 음악들과 그런 퍼포먼스를 직접 보여주고 싶은 마음이 크기 때문에 하루빨리 그런 상황이 와서 찾아뵈러 가고 싶네요. 네.
Great, you know we can't wait for that, and I speak for all BTS fans. Before you go, some fans have made a small video for you. They have a message for you. Please take a look.
Hello BTS, I'm Vasudha and today I'm here to just say how thankful and grateful we are to spend our youth with you all.
Go!
We could have never imagined a world without BTS in it. Thank you all so much for inspiring us with your lyrics, for making us the best versions of ourselves and always loving us no matter what and also making us love ourselves every time. We're so very grateful for you and all the things that you have done for us, and we Indian armies especially love if you guys come to India and have fun with us while having a concert. BTS, 진짜 너무 사랑해.
안녕하세요, 티크나입니다. First of all, you guys are doing amazing and thank you just for existing. We really love your passion for music, and even if we don't share the same language as you guys, but we totally understand what you're trying to convey through your music, and thank you for consoling us. We promise you guys that we will love and support you till eternity. So love you guys. Sarangu. Horahe.
Namaste BTS. I am thrilled to be able to talk to you. Thank you for existing and coming into our lives and making our lives so much better. We love each and every one of you with the 7 largest parts of our heart. I have a quick question. As people with busy schedules and who have to cope with a lot of stress, what advice do you have for fans to cope with stress and different kinds of personal and professional responsibilities? It'd be great if you could answer that question, and pura hai!
Namaste BTS, this is Neil from Mumbai, India. Firstly, a belated happy birthday to Jimin. Thank you for inspiring us and comforting us during these hard times with your music and messages. We, the ARMY fanboys from India, love you and fulfill you and are looking forward to a concert in India. You all have personally helped me gain confidence and believe in myself and work hard for the dreams that I want to achieve. My question for you all is, what are the challenges you face as 7 young, non-Western artists sharing your music and positivity in this world?
모든 곳에 감사하고 우리는 당신은 사랑하는 방탄소년단 파이팅!
Love you.
Korean heart.
사랑해요. So sweet.
특히나 요즘 뭐 저희도 이제 전해 들은 거지만 직접 가지를 못해서 근데 워낙 이제 요즘 좀 많은 인도 아미 여러분들이 저희를 더 많이 사랑해 주신다고 이야기를 들어가지고요. 저희도 하루빨리 인도에 가서 공연도 하고 여러 가지 프로모션을 하면서 좀 만나 뵙고 싶다는 생각을 많이 했었어요. 하루빨리 상황들이 이제 종식이 돼서 꼭 찾아뵀으면 좋겠습니다.
보라해.
사랑해요. Thank you so much. We hope you continue doing the amazing music that you make and continue to heal the world with your music. 안녕히 가세요. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 안녕히 가세요. See you in India.
Thank you.
See you in India.
Powered by Zebron.
Murder was planned.
Don't cross the Lakshman Rekha.
Why did your party do this? Let me finish.
Ridiculous. You don't deserve to be in politics. Don't you have any self-respect?
You are judge, jury, and executioner.
We live in a time when post-truth has replaced truth, when alternate facts have replaced facts, when fake news has replaced real news. On Reality Check, we debunk propaganda, we separate fact from fiction, we expose falsehoods, we hold power to account. Watch Reality Check Monday to Thursday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Srinivasan Jain, on Ndtv 24/7.
NDTV wins the Trust vote once again.
This is now.
One person who can
The NDTV group has been awarded India's most trusted news broadcaster. Independent, unbiased journalism of integrity.
Thank you for your endorsement of serious journalism.
IPL 13, cricket's biggest tournament, the way you have never seen before. Bio bubbles, social distancing, and COVID protocols. As we count down to the $1 billion league, we get you all the stories and the biggest interviews.
The moment we waited for is finally here.
The experience this time is going to be different.
In our IPL special segment, only on NDTV 24/7.
What happens if I get coronavirus? What should I do to protect my family? How long is the pandemic going to last?
इंडिया की धुन अब इंडिया तो सुन.
Joining me is the BTS ARMY from across India and very diverse age groups, different cities. Just look at this wonderful frame. Welcome everyone. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you, Rohit.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to see you.
This is such a diverse window of all age groups. We are starting at 14 years, right?
Yeah.
Who is 14? Nishita, you're 14. And Nishita, when did you...
I'm 14 as well.
Oh, you both are 14. Sharnya and Nishita both are 14. And since when was the first time you heard BTS?
I remember the date clearly. It's on 26th November 2018.
Wonderful. Sharnya?
2016.
Okay.
I went through something and I found them when I needed them the most. It's the point when you need them the most, and it's thanks to all of them. They prepare healing songs for the fans, and it's like they heal us. Somewhere we are not perfect. They tell us that you are perfect even if you are not perfect. We are perfect for them.
If you heard their speech at the UN, life goes on, let's live on. The type of inspiration they give us is just amazing.
Just being them and helping us out in every possible way and just being there.
I am a stammerer and I have been bullied by a lot of people, and it was getting really tough for me, and that is when I found BTS and they taught me how to love myself. I still get nervous when I talk to people, and people still bully me who love me the way I am and who will always, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Oh, it's okay.
We love you.
We love you. We love you. We are here for you. We love you. Don't cry. Please don't cry.
Yeah.
Like you didn't even stammer once. Why do you think that you stammer? Yes, she never stammered even your once. Your speech is so perfect. You look so good. What else do you need? Don't care
That's
about
true. You are blessed, Jasmine.
You have a unique family. Yeah, that's what matters. You have this family with you forever.
You are unique. That's what matters.
Do you want to say the three magic words to them and just say, I love you?
We'll talk to you.
I love you, BTS. Thank you for helping me in my hard time.
I would just say thank you for existing under the same sky as me and being my safest secret and comfort level forever. I mean, you are the ones who won't judge me ever and let me be who I am. I've lived half my life already. I'm a mother of two. But with BTS, I've learned to love myself again. Already, I'm a mother of two. But with BTS, I've learned to love myself again. Like how I used to do when I was a kid.
Right.
BTS is not just a band, and armies are not just any fandom. If you look closely, it's bigger than what eyes can see.
This is special. This is very, very special.
And this interview that you have done with BTS is a dream come true for all the Indian armies. And we are forever grateful for that. To Ndtv and to you, Rohit. We love you.
Thank you so much. The fact that I'm getting to meet all of you all of a sudden, there's so many new people in my life, and and you all call me family. This is also overwhelming for me. So thank you very much.
If you allow me, I'd just like to give you a few lines as my gratitude, as my thanks towards them.
Please do that. Yeah.
사랑하고 싶어 in this world.
Wow, wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I am a baker.
Yeah.
I'm a home baker, and last night when I was asked about this interview,
So talented.
These are the BTS BT21 characters.
Watching them on TV is just not fun.
In cookie form with purple cookie dough.
Amazing.
Oh, cookies also RJ. Oh my
Jasmine,
god.
are they enough?
So many drawings. Oh my
Jasmine, are they enough for all of us?
I have a Tata here. I just have a Tata here.
And I'm thinking about sending these to you.
Can we just do one thing? Can we just all thank NDTV and you first? And
Yes,
then
please.
Yes,
We would definitely like to do that.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
So much for being that platform. Thank you, NDTV. So much.
Thank you to all of you from NDTV. Woo, that was absolutely wonderful, and what a good note to end on, guys. Stay the way you guys are. That's all I can say. And thank you so much for including me and NDTV in a part of all this positivity. Thank you so much. You guys stay safe.
Thank
you too, Rohit. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Lots of love to all of you. Bye.
Powered by Zebronic.
Legacy is often seen as a burden of expectations. It comes with its own set of challenges. The challenge to take it forward, challenge to reimagine, challenge to be in the present, and also challenge to think about the future.
What accountability are you talking about?
As long as the core values and principles remain uncompromised. Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 21 years old, but it is young at 21. So let us begin the big fight.
The top newsmakers, the top debates, the honest truth behind every story. Where do you see the local situation in South Pangong going?
Our boys are well prepared. Chinese need to know that our boys are capable of doing the same thing that their boys are doing.
I keep emphasizing this, saying that unless we all get involved, don't expect the government to just sort of mandate something.
The most terrible time global aviation has ever seen. At this time, we can get the structural change of having aviation turbine fuel included in the GST. It will help clean up the system tremendously.
Left, right and center with me, Vishnu Shom, Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. on NDTV 24/7.
They say the zero is nothing unless it connects the dots and the real story emerges. Unless it captures the truth. They say the camera never lies. Unless it is the essence of India, of diversity and tolerance. Unless it reveals the wealth of nations and silences the barrel of a gun. Unless it reflects the sadness in the eye of the tiger as forests disappear. In fact, the dot is the center of your universe and of ours. The dot is the essence of NDTV, the essence of just one word: trust.
You are all nothing. Use your brain.
Distort the fact. Murder was planned.
Don't cross the Lakshman Rekha.
Why did your party do this? Let me finish.
Ridiculous. You don't deserve to be in politics. This is unnecessary. Don't you have any self-respect?
You are judge, jury and executioner.
We live in a time when post-truth has replaced truth, when alternate facts have replaced facts, when fake news has replaced real news. On Reality Check, we debunk propaganda. We separate fact from fiction. We expose falsehoods. We hold power to account. Watch Reality Check Monday to Thursday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Srinivasan Jain, on Ndtv 24/7.
NDTV wins the trust vote once again.
This is now.
One person who can
The NDTV group has been awarded India's most trusted news broadcaster. Independent, unbiased journalism of integrity.
Thank you for your endorsement of serious journalism.
IPL 13, cricket's biggest tournament, the way you have never seen before. Bio bubbles, social distancing and COVID protocols. As we count down to the $1 billion league, we get you all the stories and the biggest interviews.
The moment we waited for is finally here.
The experience this time is going to be different.
In our IPL special segment, only on NDTV 24/7.
What happens if I get coronavirus? What should I do to protect my family? How long is the pandemic going to last? On social media, you will get hundreds of answers to these questions, but many of them will be false and risky.
Hello and welcome to a special show, Coronavirus, Facts versus Myths. We will talk to experts in India and around the world to help us all debunk the dangerous rumors and lies that are being spread.
Very impressed the way you anchors prepare your programs and the speakers you select. Your channel is doing a lot of research.
Weekdays at 1:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
Legacy is often seen as a burden of expectations. It comes with its own set of challenges. The challenge to take it forward, challenge to reimagine, challenge to be in the present, and also challenge to think about the future.
What accountability are you talking about?
As long as the core values and principles remain uncompromised. Debates are essential not just for journalism, but for humanity. It ignites our mind, opens it up for counter-opinion. To hear all views, opinion of all hues. Which is why the oldest running debate show on Indian news television is not 21 years old, but it is young at 21. So let us begin the big fight. The top newsmakers, the top Good evening and welcome to The Big Fight, a show that is young at 21, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. There is a global debate, in fact many would argue it's gone way beyond a debate, around the world where countries are now deeply polarized around two words. And I'm going to come to those two words in just a short moment. At the very beginning we want to say that whatever your grievance may be, whatever may be upsetting you or has offended you, the answer to that and the justification for that cannot be terrorism. You cannot justify terrorism. So if beheadings are happening in France and there are certain nations that are either complicit in their silence or are openly supporting violence, then this is wrong and this has to be spoken about very, very clearly. Similarly, on the other side, most of the Islamic nations feel that France, by virtue of certain actions that it has taken or no action that it is taking against how religious sentiments are being hurt, is indulging in Islamophobia, and that too by promoting these acts is indulging in Islamophobia. So this entire debate around the world has revolved now around these two words, Islamophobia and Islamofascism. So on the big fight tonight, Islamic backlash against France. India, remember, has taken an unprecedented position in favor of France. We've never done this in the past, but we've done it now. New Delhi has openly backed Macron, calling the personal attacks on him deplorable, quote-unquote deplorable. But then we also have to speak about the duplicity. Many people argue that there is a duplicity in the argument of Islamic countries. They're united against France's reforms, but silent on China's Muslim persecution. Why? And also attack on the Prophet caricature in France, but completely silent on Prophet depiction on China's CCTV. Again, why? So on the big fight tonight, Islamic backlash against France, Islamophobia versus Islamofascism, and most important, decoding India's changed position. What does this changed position of New Delhi actually mean? Let me introduce our guest this evening. We've got Brahma Chelani, Strategic Affairs Expert, joining us. Thank you so much, Mr. Chelani. Dr. Wail Awad is a senior international journalist, is also with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Awad. Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, former ambassador to Germany, has also served as an ambassador to Indonesia. Thank you very much, Ambassador Singh. Sunny Hundal, British journalist and writer, joins us from London. And Lalita Kumaramangalam, director of the India Foundation and member of the BJP, is also with us. The format of the show, very, very simple. All of you guests get 1 minute of time. We call this the first punch. So let's begin with you, Lalita Kumaramangalam. Your 1 minute begins now. All right, we'll come back to Lalita Kumaramangalam in just a short moment. Brahma Chelani, Dr. Chelani, will begin with you. Your opening comments.
The Islamist calls for boycott of French goods contrast with the muted response to China's assault on Islam. France is not going and attacking Islam. What Macron and the French government are doing, they are spotlighting the role of violent jihadism. They're targeting violent jihadists in France. And yet, the reaction of some countries like Turkey and Qatar in particular against France contrasts with a muted response to China's open campaign against Islam. China, as you know, has established a Muslim gulag which has more than 1 million detainees. It's systematically trying to deprogram Islamic identities in Xinjiang. And yet, the reaction from the Muslim world has been so muted. And Macron is not alone in spotlighting the role of radical Islam. Trump has repeatedly cited the threat from radical Islam.
Okay, Dr. Chelani, I'm going to come back to you so that you can complete your argument. Correct. Dr. Chelani, I'm going to come back to you. We're giving 1 minute time for the opening comments, so we're going to quickly come back to you and you can complete the thought. Dr. Wail Awad and Ambassador Gurjeet Singh are also with us, and I believe Dr. Lalita Kumaramangalam is also with us. Thank you very much, Ms. Kumaramangalam. Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, 1 minute for your opening comments. Your time begins now, sir.
Thank you. I think the question that you posed is best answered if you look at things strategically rather than on any consistency or moral standpoint. So I don't think Turkey or Pakistan or even Mahathir Mohamad is standing up for Islamic countries or Islamic Ummah in general. They are standing up to fight against what Turkey perceives to be a country which is troublesome to it, which is France. So it is the Turkey-France contradiction which is coming into play, and Pakistan is simply supporting Turkey, and Mahathir is also supporting them on this idea that we are all one. So I don't think it is really the Islamic Ummah led by the OIC or Saudi Arabia or UAE, who have been fairly muted in their criticism. So I think the answer is in the strategic construct around this, which is also factored in by France's own domestic contradictions, which I'm sure we'll discuss today.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Singh, thank you so much for your opening comments. Let me now go across to Lalita Kumaramangalam. Yes, Ms. Kumaramangalam, your opening comments.
Sorry, I don't know what your question is. I joined late. Can you just repeat your question, please?
Okay. No, not a problem.
Yeah.
Let me repeat my question. So there's Islamic backlash against France, and India has taken an unprecedented stand to support France. And there is a debate globally, a very polarized debate globally between Islamophobia versus Islamofascism. And obviously, you can't settle these issues with polarized opinion. So there is no meeting ground as of this moment. How do you decode India's unprecedented stand, and what do you think about this whole issue? So your opening comments, Ms. Kumaraman.
Yeah, these words, Islamophobia and Islamofascism, they're terms, and I don't really deal in terms. But the fact is that there can be no excuse for murder or for any form of terror. If that terror is based on a religion people belonging to that particular religion claim that their religion actually permits that, then it is wrong, regardless of what religion one may belong to. Insofar as India's reaction to what has happened in France over the last few days, and I think the French government, especially the French Prime Minister's response, very tough response to it, I think we are also coming from where we ourselves stand, that no community can hold, can justify murder as a form of protest. Now, what has happened in France is that they say they were upset over certain cartoons, but that doesn't mean you slit people's throat or blow up churches or any form of terror or any form of murder, which it actually can be allowed.
Right.
So, according to me, it's as simple as this. The rest of it are terms which are used in the world. Sometimes I don't know why we use such terms, but I think this is what the crux of the matter is.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to come back to you, Ms. Kumaramangalam. Let me now go to Dr. Awad. Dr. Awad, the first punch, your opening comments for 1 minute. Your time starts now.
Thank you, Sanket. I think what happened in France is a condemnable. It's a terrorist act, and I condemn it by all, my wholeheartedly, and my heartfelt condolences to the family of the bereaved. Similarly to the same two Algerian women, Muslim women, who have been stabbed by a French in retaliation for what's happening there. So therefore, this is a condemnable act, and no religion can call for any kind of this killing. That is what religion is meant, oneness of a human being. But the issue here is it a freedom of speech for a president of France to encourage the depictions of the prophet when there is already the court of the European court have said that this despising the religious figure by any means is not related to the freedom of speech. So what President France have done, he had add oil to the fire, and he had created a hatred discourse that have led to this. So therefore, I say both sides are guilty of the first-degree murder of humanity. All humans should condemn what happened. All humans should condemn what extremism and radicalism happened.
Sure. All right, Dr. Awad, thank you so much. Sunny Hundal, we come to you now. The first punch, your 1 minute of opening comments. Your time begins now.
Good evening. Well, I stand against religious extremism on all sides, but I do think there is hypocrisy on the side over here too. And so there are three aspects to the French Republic which are relevant here. Firstly, the separation between religion and state, equality of all people regardless of religion, and the freedom to insult. Now, would the BJP go along with any of these ideals? No. In France, there would be a French party. So
the same standards I think should apply to France, to India, and to these Islamic states. Now, there's no doubt that the Muslim majority countries like Turkey and Pakistan are big hypocrites in all this. But I don't think India has a leg to stand on either. And I don't think Europe is taking any lessons from India, given the coverage over there of Muslims being lynched for allegedly eating beef or the Babri Masjid situation, or the riots in Delhi earlier this year. So all of these issues are being seen across the world. So no one is going to say.
Okay, there is a difference, Mr. Undal, as far as the court-delivered verdict is concerned. All right, we've run out of. Yes, you've completed your 1 minute time. I just wanted to say there is a whale of a difference between a court judgment and public beheading, right? So these are two totally different things, Mr. Undal. I'm going to come back to you very quickly. Let's kickstart this discussion. Dr. Chelani, sorry to have cut you short. Would you want to conclude or complete the argument that you were making?
The 2 points that I want to make, that India's response to what's happened in France is not unprecedented, because radical Islamist terrorism presents a mortal threat to all democracies, and India has in the past been prompt in condemning acts of terror, whether in the United States or elsewhere. The second point I wish to make is that the ideological...
No, but Dr. Chelani, India has not just condemned acts of terrorism. India has also called personal attacks on Macron deplorable. It's in that context that I'm saying that this is unprecedented.
No, Sanket, you're right.
To defend a world leader.
You have to keep in mind that the attacks on Macron have been unprecedented. He has been called not civilized human being. He's been called all sorts of names. We have not had this kind of situation earlier. So in this situation, the Indian government has rightly condemned attacks on Macron's character. The second point that one has to bear in mind is that radical Islamist terrorism has ideological roots, and those ideological roots can be traced back to Wahhabism, which legitimizes violent jihad with its call for a war on infidels. The troubling part is that Wahhabism has been snuffing out the diverse, more liberal Islamic traditions in non-Arab countries. And this is creating a toxic environment in which extremism is thriving. Wahhabism has also incited anti-Shia attacks in countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, etc. So Wahhabism is posing a threat to democratic traditions, but also creating attacks even on Muslims, like the minorities in Islamic countries, the Shias, the Ahmadiyyats, etc.
Okay. Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, let me come to you. Do you think, Ambassador Singh, that this is some form of correction happening in France, at least politically for their own domestic consumption, where a free society, a liberal society, which welcomed people from all over the world for many, many decades, has now suddenly realized or seems to realize that its land is being used to basically assert global terrorism. At least that's the argument that is coming in from France as a justification for these measures. I'm talking in the context of this new proposed law.
Well, I don't have a justification, but let me attempt an explanation. So, what you have, and what your screen is showing, that France's law on abhorring separatism of Muslims in France wants to bring them more into French society. That seems to be the aim, which means, but how are they doing it? They are saying that no imams will be trained overseas. If you need state subsidy, you have to sign a declaration that you will hold the laws of the Republic higher than the laws of your religion, and all small children will not be homeschooled but will need to go to school. Now, your funding will also be controlled from overseas, and it's the French Islamic Association which will govern all Islamic issues. Okay, so this is the plan that you have, which President Macron announces on 2nd October, well before two major incidents of terrorism take place. But having said that, 74% of Muslim youth in France believe that they hold Islamic values higher than those of the French Republic. So you have a very clear cleavage between what you are attempting to do on what the people evidently want. Now, some of the more left-wing members of parliament in France are saying that President Macron is chasing the wrong cleavage. He should look at a cleavage between the rich and the poor and try and reduce those gaps through a better performing economy and public service. But he has chosen to go the cleavage between Islam and others in France, largely because his party is not doing well in French polls over recent weeks. He is the one European leader whose ratings have not risen in the pandemic. So he needs to find some way of doing this, and he seems to have chosen this kind of integration. The second issue here is the entire challenge of immigration. Now, for years, we have been told that France integrates its overseas people best. But over a series of rioting that we have seen in France, unconnected to Islam, it is the rich-poor divide which has actually come out more, and the integration of people from the former colonies has not been the best in France. Thirdly, even other people in other European countries say that certain restrictions on liberty and freedom of expression have been accepted by all. For instance, in the Netherlands, there is no freedom of expression in criticizing the monarch, and that is accepted in a democratic society. So why are absolute values being sought in France today? But at the same time, when you have the new lockdown from today...
Sure, but then many would argue that's exactly how the French society has been, or this is how they want to be. It also has to do with Mr. Macron's positioning.
That you find acceptable. But by freedom of expression, you want to hold it an absolute truth. I think those are the contradictions in France.
Absolutely. Those are the contradictions that a lot of people around the world are speaking about in the context of the French society. But many in France will argue this is how we are. This is what we call being liberal and being secular. Anyway, Dr. Awad, I want to quickly come back to you on this point of Islamophobia versus Islamofascism. Now, a lot of commentators also seem to suggest that there are questions on the duplicity of Islamic nations. And if you could just hear me out before you reply. So you've got Turkey and Pakistan who are silent on Muslim persecution by China. There is no outrage over persecution of Uyghur Muslims. Beheadings for depiction of Prophet Muhammad as cartoon take place in France, but there is no outrage over Prophet depiction in a period drama on China's CCTV network. Would you want to respond to this?
Look, Turkey does not represent Islam nor Pakistan. So let's make it very clear. The practice of religion is different from the political Islam, which they have been trying to involve and indulge in gaining gaining momentum, because these are a promoter of extremism, and extremism is based on the ignorance and the mobilization. So what they are doing is what Turkish president is doing. He is the first hand murder of what he did in my country and Iraq. Everybody knows what he has done, from zero tolerance with neighbors to zero problem with all the neighbors. He is expanding his hand into the Mediterranean Sea, gone to Libya, he's gone to Syria, he's gone to Iraq, he's gone everywhere. So I think what we have seen in what he is doing wrong. They don't represent Islam. Secondly, which is very important here, I fully agree what Professor Ibrahim Chilani was saying. It is exactly the same that there are ghettos within this society where there are a group of minorities who are unable to integrate into the society. France have the second largest population of Muslim. I mean, the second religion is Muslim in France. So Muslim community is very strong, but there are ghettos where they allowed the Saudis, madrasas and mosques to be built there and teaching the Takfiri, Wahhabi, jihadist group. Why none of the European have been silenced on when the jihadists came to my country, Syria, and destroy and destabilize Syria and Iraq, and now they are refusing to take them back. So Europe and exactly France must admit that there is indigenous terrorists within their country, within their society. They need to deal with it. It's not that it is only exporting from us. There is a terrorism inside. So Turkey is taking full advantage of this.
Sure.
He's riding on the Muslim world. Similar fashion is the Pakistani, and that has nothing to do with Islam. Islam is a religion, and all religion call for the oneness of God.
I think this
Freedom
is an
of
important
speech
point
has
that
nothing to
Dr.
do with
Awad
it.
seems to be raising, that you have to dehyphenate. I think this is an important point that Dr. Awad is making, that you have to dehyphenate the actions and utterances of these two nations, Turkey and Pakistan, with the rest of the Islamic nations. They're all protesting, all right. And you've got some absolutely deplorable comments made by the ex-Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mr. Mahathir Mohamad, who seemed to suggest or justify violence, but then that tweet was taken down. But apart from that, every view from Islamic nations cannot be seen as the view of, say, a Pakistan or a Turkey. Sunny Hundal wanted to come in very quickly, and then I'll go to Ms. Kumara Mangalam. Yes, Mr. Hundal.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, look, I think it's obvious that each party or each country is doing this for their own domestic audience, right? So Pakistan's Imran Khan is doing this primarily to stand strong with his country.
Erdogan in Turkey is doing this because his economy is falling apart and he needs to distract everyone. Macron is doing it because obviously the French people demand it, but also his popularity isn't doing too well either. So there is a political layer to all this, which everyone seems to be missing in this debate around Islamofascism. And same thing in India. You know, it's fine for Modi to stand against and say we give support to what's happening in France. But like I said, no one in Europe is looking towards India as a model of religious tolerance towards minorities. That's simply not the case. So, you know,
okay.
The point I'm trying to
Many
make
would say
is
that this is an assessment, Mr. Hundal.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, please carry on.
No, all I'm saying is that on one level there is a political debate going on here, which is less to do with Muslims and Islamofascism and more to do with the political priorities of each country. That's mostly it. Within that, you have people playing their own agenda. You've got Muslim extremists who are using this for their own agenda. There are Hindu extremists on social media who are using this for their own agenda.
Sorry,
okay, we seem to have lost that audio line with Mr. Hundal. Okay. We're going to come back. We're going to come back to you, Mr. Hundal. But I think reducing this discussion to some people and their comments on social media who may be associated with the Hindu faith is perhaps a little parochial of an understanding on an issue as wide and complicated as this. But Ms. Kumara Mangalam, let me now come and ask you a very important point. The fact that an unprecedented support came in from New Delhi for Paris, I can understand that you know, there is a strong relationship between France and a very strategic partnership between France and India. The Prime Minister has been there 5 times during his tenure as Prime Minister. Commenting on terrorism also reiterates Modi's strong position against terrorism. He has mentioned this at the United Nations General Assembly also. But there is a larger point, Ms. Kumara Mangalam, that is also being spoken about this new proposed law in France. See, what does this law propose to do? It is premised on constitution above religion, which basically means that the French president is proposing one nation, one law applicable to all faiths. In other words, in the Indian context, this sounds very, very similar to the Uniform Civil Code. Do you think that this support from New Delhi has anything to do with this?
Look, Sanket, in any country, especially a democratic country, everybody has equal rights, which means they are in most ways equal before the law. In India, it's only certain groups which are allowed to have their own personal laws. Most other groups have got their laws have been codified, personal laws have been codified, etc. But I'm not going into that. That's a different debate for another day. What I want to say very clearly here is that ridiculing anybody's religion is wrong. It was done many years ago, if you remember, when M.F. Hussain, one of the most brilliant painters India has produced, modern painters India has produced, had made that ridiculous painting of Saraswati with her pubic hair. At that time, nobody really protested when Hindus said it offends us. Now, every religion has a right to say when you ridicule their prophet or their gods or, the people, those in their religion whom they hold dear and revere, they have a right to protest. But you don't protest by spilling blood. That's what I'm saying. Now, that has nothing to do with politics. Macron, any other leader in any other democratic country, also has to play to his political audience, like every leader in every other country. And it's not just in democracies. Look at what China is doing, and many other countries that are not democratic are doing. But here, what I'd like to say is that even if you say that one of the reasons why India may be or is supporting France is not just because of the close defense and business ties, etc., but also because we believe that the common civil code is actually what will in many ways uphold democracy for every citizen of the country regardless. I don't see what's wrong in that. I don't think New Delhi has thought of that while doing
No,
while
I'm not
supporting
saying
Macron
that there is
this
anything
time,
wrong, Ms. Kumaramangalam.
because what's
I'm
happened
not saying,
in France
but my
is
point
horrific.
is, if this is what it is, then it should be spelled out. You know how controversial the Uniform Civil Code issue is. Do you feel that by supporting France in this effort, if France succeeds, then India can then present France as a template?
I don't think India is looking at anybody else to give us
and
a
then
template.
present that template in the Indian context.
Sanket, I don't think India is looking at anybody else to give us a template. We already have our own template. The timing of whether or when the common civil code will be brought in or not is a different question. That is for India to decide. I don't think it has anything to do with France or any third country at all. I think that's stretching it a bit thin. Politics in every country is different. You can't say that because 2 countries or 3 countries are democracies, that politics in all those countries are the same. Much like the gentleman who, when he who spoke before me, said that what may be said by Turkey or Pakistan or even Mahathir in Malaysia, it does not represent every Muslim Muslims all over the world. So there are differences from country to country. So I don't think the Indian government is foolish enough to presume that France is just like India. We are very different from them. We have supported them on this issue.
Yes, Ms. Kumaramangalam.
Yeah.
Sure. Dr. Awad, see, I think that's an important point that is being made by Ms. Kumaramangalam, that people of all faiths... Yes, I'll quickly come back to you. One moment. Dr. Awad first. Dr. Awad, do you think that this is a point that needs to be understood? And that's why I said at the very beginning that polarized opinions are not going to help anyone particularly. The fact that you must acknowledge that this blind freedom of expression is also not right. People must have their right to protest. But certainly they cannot justify acts of terrorism like spilling blood and slitting throats. Dr. Awad.
Absolutely. I fully agree with Lalita totally that nobody should despise the other god you don't worship. This is written 2500 BC in Palmyra when they have stolen that statue and put it in the French Museum, where we had our goddess saying that don't despise the god you don't pray for him. So therefore, the respect of religion is different, Sangeet. What I'm trying to say here, if the French company in 2005, Manili, have pulled out their shoes because they depicted the gods, Hindu gods, is because there was a sentiment of the Hindu was hurt. Similarly, many of the people have pulled out all their products when it comes, it's hurting the sentiment of the people. That's nothing to do with the freedom of speech. And that only they have pulled, they have apologized. So I think that the European court have made it very clear there is difference between despising the God or the belief of somebody and the freedom of speech. We are all for the freedom of speech. I am one of the vocal speaking on this language. I am very critical for all the Arab leaders who have sent their people into my country to kill innocent people in the name of religion. They are all guilty of the first crime, murder.
if only Dr. Awad was on the negotiating table, the world will be a better place. Thank you very much, Dr. Awad, Brahma Chelani, Lalita Kumaramangalam, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh and Sunny Hundal for joining us on this discussion. We're stopping for a short break right here on The Big Fight. When we come back, we speak to a senior Congress leader who's also served as the Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Salman Khurshid, on what he thinks about this change in strategy or the shifting gears as far as New Delhi is concerned in favor of Paris. What does this mean? What does he feel? Back in a bit.
Big Fight, co-powered by Safe Express, India's largest supply chain network.
The all-new I-20. Bookings open.
Say the magic word, bon boy. Checking on the fly. What joy!